In this clip, we're going to have a look at how the female reproductive system is under hormonal control. So for this next couple of slides, we're going to need you to think back about the endocrine system that you studied in previous biology course. So think back, and you can remember different parts of the endocrine system, and you'll remember the pituitary gland, which we often call the master gland, and it's located below the hypothalamus, which is a part of the brain. It's divided up into two lobes, the anterior lobe and the posterior lobe. Well, it produces 9 hormones in total. The anterior part will produce 7 different hormones, and you can see them all here. And the posterior part will produce 2. The antidiuretic hormone, which we talked a little bit about in the urinary system unit, and oxytocin, which is going to have some major roles to play in promoting muscles in the contraction of the uterus muscles and promoting labor and delivery during childbirth. Alright, so the ovarian and uterine cycles, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on, are controlled by a hormone called gonadotropin releasing hormone. So we often just call that GnRH. And this is secreted by the hypothalamus. Now, GnRH stimulates the release of FSH and LH, which are produced by the pituitary gland. And I'm going to show you a picture about how all this comes together a little bit later, but let's just go through it hormone by hormone now. So follicular stimulating hormone, FSH, and LH, luteinizing hormone, are both produced by the pituitary gland, and the GnRH is the hormone that stimulates the pituitary to produce those 2 hormones. Now, FSH, just like it says in the name, follicle stimulating hormone, is going to help with the growth of follicles inside the ovary. LH, luteinizing hormone, are going to produce hormones that help further the development of the ovarian follicles. Now, both of these hormones, FSH and LH, are going to stimulate the ovarian follicles, which will secrete estrogens. Now, estrogens are a group of hormones that are considered female hormones, and they have a wide-ranging effect on the female body, and we'll talk about those in a couple of slides down the road. The LH will start the process of ovulation. We talked about that in the previous clip. And it'll promote the formation of the corpus luteum. Once the corpus luteum is formed after ovulation, then we're going to have 4 hormones that are released from the corpus luteum: estrogens, progesterone, and then relaxin and inhibin. So there are a lot of different hormones that come into effect when we're talking about regulation of female reproductive system. Now, estrogens are probably the biggest group of hormones, and you can see here they have a wide range of functions. They're secreted by the ovarian follicles. They promote the development and maintenance of the reproductive structures, female secondary sex characteristics, mammary glands, breasts. They have a wide effect over the female body. They can increase protein anabolism, so it helps us build strong bones, lower blood cholesterol. There's a lot of different things that estrogens do in general. The next one is progesterone. Now, this is going to be secreted mainly by the cells that we find in the corpus luteum. So the cells that are left over from the Graafian follicle will form the corpus luteum, and these are going to secrete these progesterone. Now, together, the estrogens and the progesterone will work to prepare the endometrium, which is the lining of cells inside of the uterus, prepare that for implantation, so the possible fertilization, and then we have implantation where the baby attaches to the mom, and the embryo will attach to the mom, and further development can happen. We'll also see that progesterone prepares the mammary glands to secrete milk, which will help nourish the baby after it's born. The third hormone produced by the corpus luteum is relaxin, and this is produced in small amounts in every cycle. What it does is it relaxes, just like it says in the name, relax the uterus and inhibits contractions, so it keeps the uterus still. Now, during labor, this hormone will increase the flexibility of the pelvic girdle. Now, pelvic girdle are the bones that surround the female reproductive system, holds the legs, contact with the axial skeleton, and it'll help make way for the birth of the baby, which will make it a bit easier for the baby to be delivered. Inhibin is another hormone that's produced by the corpus luteum. After ovulation occurs, corpus luteum will start to produce inhibin, and inhibin inhibits, or it stops the release of FSH, follicle stimulating hormones, and to a lesser extent luteinizing hormone, or LH. So these hormones can have effects on each other as well as on different structures in the body. Now, this picture here is literally worth 10,000 words. It's a summary of all of the hormones that I just talked about, and it also talks about, or it shows you where they come from and what their major functions are. So you can tell here by just the number of arrows that a lot of these hormones act on each other, and you can tell by the number of the texts that are here that there's a lot of different things that are controlled and rely on hormones in order for the female reproductive system to be successful and work well. So what I would expect you guys to take away from this slide is the understanding the structure. So you see what structures here are super important. The pituitary, the hypothalamus releasing these hormones, the ovaries, the follicles inside the ovaries, and the corpus luteum. These are responsible for the production and secretion of these major hormones. So what I would expect you guys to know from this is what the major hormones are. So starting up here with GnRH, you should also know FSH and LH do, where they have their effect, and then know not everything about all of these hormones, but know a little bit about each one of these. So have an idea of what the major effects are from these hormones. I'll leave this video here just as a separate video for the hormonal control of the female reproductive system, and then we'll come back in the next video and we'll talk about the ovarian and the menstrual cycles, and we'll talk about how they're also controlled by hormones.